if you're going to suffer, then there's a way to do that, right? There's a good way, there's lots of bad ways. And the indication from Peter here in First Peter chapter 4 is not if you're going to suffer, but when you suffer, because you probably are going to suffer. And he says, when you suffer, this is ground we plowed last time in verse 19, 1 Peter chapter 4. So then, those who suffer according to God's will should commit themselves to their faithful Creator and continue to do good. I think some of this has to do with your temperament and personality in terms of, so what does that look like? There are some folks whose personality sets them up to, no matter what, they just press forward. These are kind of A-type people, right? We are going to get through this, and I have an identified destination, and you're going to need to lead, follow, or get out of the way, which is partly temperamental and partly a function of a maturity or lack of. There are other people who they don't work quite so much off of an initiative thing as a permission thing. And so they go where they feel permitted and they do what they feel permitted to do. And sometimes these two people seem like opposite ends of some kind of continuum. In God's family, and that's the context, Peter's not just writing this like 7 Habits of Highly Effective Hebrews or first century people. He's writing specifically to God's family, to the church, and his design, God's design for his church is that even though we are going to encounter resistance, we would continue to do good. That's, if you want to put, so what's the mission of the church? You can say that in a lot of different ways. My wife and I were incredibly blessed to be a part of a church in Las Vegas who their mission statement at the time was to seek and save the lost. And we understood two things. They're lost in you couldn't throw a pebble in any direction, not hit a lost person in Las Vegas, which incidentally, I think is happening all across the country. Our culture has progressed or regressed to the point where there are lost people in every direction. Well, the second thing we realized is when you seek and save the lost, we're not talking about only punching the golden ticket so that they can go to heaven. We're talking about how do you find lost people, you bring them to God, and you help them grow into maturity in Him. And that was, frankly, the biggest part of both Debbie's and my job, was helping people grow. And I love that mission statement. I find it to not be very apparent in a lot of churches, and it wasn't like they just had this nice biblical mission statement. I mean, these were actually the words of Jesus. They actually lived by that. They designed their structure around the idea of, we're going to find lost people and bring them to God. Well, there are other churches who have other kinds of mission statements. They want to make fully devoted followers of Jesus. I'm with you. That is a rephrasing of the Great Commission in Matthew 28:19. Go and make disciples, teaching them, baptizing them, and teaching them to observe everything I've commanded. Others have said, we want to make disciples who make disciples. I get that. These are very biblical ideas. If you found the biggest bucket to put all those in, it kind of would come down to we do good. We do good. And when we do good, the gospel becomes more and more attractive to the people around us. You can make that so fuzzy and so, I don't know the exact word I'm searching for. You can make it so just nice. See, there's a difference between, we don't want to be nice and we want to do good. There's sometimes doing good takes incredible courage, and being nice takes courage, but I'm not talking about, that's not what this is all about. There are times when doing good is very costly. When William Wilberforce in England in the 17 and 1800s determined that he would be a catalyst in ending slavery and slave trade in England, he was doing good. It took him his entire lifetime. When anybody who has been catalytic, has been instrumental in bringing about significant moral change in the world has stepped on the scene, it's never been inexpensive. There are so few of those things. When you name anybody who has made a difference in the world, and I mean a difference for good, and it was expensive. For many, it even cost them their lives. Well, I don't want to go down too long of a bunny trail on that, but I think sometimes we overcomplicate the mission. The mission is, in simplest terms, we do good, even when it's hard. That's what Peter says. When we suffer, first of all, it's important that we suffer according to God's will, right? And I talked about my view of this is that this is when I suffer because I'm living according to God's will. That's the primary thing. Well, suffering for making a stupid decision is just reaping what I've sown. But when I suffer according to God's will, I should commit myself to my faithful Creator and continue to do good. I believe there's a corollary relationship there between committing myself to my faithful Creator and continuing to do good. I think that the extent that I can go or will go to in doing good is directly related to how I don't know the right way to say this, how well, how strongly, how fully I understand, perceive, have embraced that and committed myself to my faithful Creator. That's where the energy for doing good comes from. You see, when I commit myself to my faithful Creator, it's fairly easy that for me to connect that I'm committing myself to the person of God, my faithful Creator. And the agency of that commitment, looking at the big picture of what the New Testament declares, the agency is grace, not effort. When I connect to God and His grace, I experience a power to continue to do good. That I will always want to harp on the idea that Paul and I are not talking about doing good so that we'll get a nod from God. No, we don't continue to do good in order that God would approve of us and like us, and that's not That is not at all what this is about. This is about, I will continue to good. We continue to do good because of God's grace. You see, by committing to our faithful Creator, we're committing to His grace. And God has this commitment toward us that His grace is immeasurable, it's unending, it's constantly available, it's constantly being outpoured. So, commit myself to my faithful Creator, my personal God, which is not my God, as in, oh, my God's different than your God. No. He's the same God, but I have this personal connection to Him through His grace, and I continue to do good. It will take effort to continue to do good. And as much as I would love to be able to say, doing good when you're connected to God, gosh, it just leaks out of you. It just comes naturally. I don't find that to be true in my own life. I have to continue to do good. There's an implication there that you continue the effort of doing good. All right, pause, because I want to take a moment for us to reflect on what does that mean. I'm just at part of my bedtime ritual is I read 2 or 3 chapters in a book before I lay it down and try to finish the day. And last night I read a little portion out of Bob Goff's Love Does book, and he said he'd been a part of a Bible study, and it was very, and these are my words, not his, it was very not life-changing. It was just all about more information. And so he decided, what if we stopped doing the Bible study and began a Bible doing, where we would read the Bible and decide, okay, what are we supposed to do about this? And then we would figure out how we do that and do it together. And that's where I want to be here with this. That what does it look like for you and me to commit? Other versions say entrust, to commit ourselves to our faithful Creator and continue to do good. There are things in my life that I am doing in this season of my life without very much significant positive ping back, right? And they're good things. I believe they're good. And I think these are things, well, there's 2 things. These are things I think God wants me to do, and these are things I want to do. But I'm not getting much positive feedback. I'm not experiencing, even in the smallest way, any measure of suffering for doing these things. But even when I'm not suffering, when I don't, and it's not just me, but when as human beings, we're not experiencing the feedback that what we're doing is making a difference, it's a little hard to keep doing it. Since we live in a culture where we are not suffering, truly, we are not suffering because of our commitment to our faithful Creator, I think we have to look at, what are we doing that we're losing enthusiasm for? What are we doing? What good am I doing? So the first question, I suppose, is what good am I doing? What are my goals? Because I want the outcome to be that God would say that was good. Not in terms of, I judge you to be great because of what you did was such great. No, I want him to say, you were doing a good thing. That was what you wanted was good. That's silly maybe, but that's where I want to be. All right, what am I doing toward that? And how can I invite others to join me in that? And what do I need to sustain my enthusiasm for doing good, continuing to do good? Do I need to recommit myself to my faithful Creator? Do I need to be reminded somehow that my Creator is faithful? Well, that's up to you. Believe it or not, next time we're going to crack open chapter 5 of 1 Peter, and that's the last chapter of the book. And who knows, by the first of the year, we may actually be finished. Well, I hope I get to see you again next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.